Welcome to another edition of the Business and Personal Podcast, where we bring you closer to the people you spend your hard-earned dollars with. And today we're joined by Bruno Tabbi. He's the co-founder of Ignition Toll Free. He's been with the company for the last 11 years, and we have a lot of interesting things to talk about today. So, Bruno, thanks for coming on. How are you doing today?
Hi, Ryan. I'm good. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on, and myself being in the advertising industry, for sure, the number one thing that I'm held accountable for is tracking for the companies that I work with and showing them how I brought business into the door. And I think that's only going to be more and more important as we go into 2021 and advertising budgets continue to tighten up as people adjust from the pandemic. So the services that you offer with these memorable toll-free numbers and our ability to go back and re-listen to the calls and track the results, it's so important. So I think people, especially business owners that listen to this, will be interested in the possibilities. So first, Bruno, just kind of tell me about how you joined Ignition Toll Free and kind of became involved and passionate about this business.
So myself and a partner had invested in some numbers, and this was in the middle of the recession, actually just at the beginning. And I was previously, I'm an attorney, but I was doing this on the side just to see if it had any traction. And we ended up getting a really good response and saying, you know what, I think we can turn this into a full-time business, which we did. But the idea for us was that these simple recall mechanisms are the best way to get people to remember your brand and cut through the noise out there. And so we did it, and we've done it in a variety of industries. Vein treatment, 1-800-VEIN-DOC, 1-800-varicose, 1-800-plumbing, 1-800-drywall, all types of numbers in all different industries. And one thing always holds true: people with easy to remember phone numbers get more calls than those who don't.
And you work with some very big national brands and some big brands here in Metro Detroit. Just kind of let people know some of the bigger companies you have worked with success on this.
Sure. So we actively have clients with California Closets. They have 1-800-CAL Closets. We do business with a brand called Lithium Motors. They're the 5th largest auto retailer in the country. They're west of the Mississippi. We do business with Stressless Furniture, which is a very large, they compete with Lazy Boy. They're an international company. So we have large clients like that nationally. Locally, brands people are familiar with, Metro Vein Centers. They use 1-800-VEIN-DOC. They've been with us for years. They start off with 2 locations and are in several states with that phone number. And I'm sure there's a variety of other local people that we work with that I just can't recall off the top of my head. But we have a lot of clients in so many different industries locally.
And I know the businesses that I talk to are always very interested in this concept, and they see where it can benefit them. And one of the biggest challenges, and you and I are working on a few right now, is how do you come up with that perfect number that fits their business? And what would be some suggestions you would have for business owners that are thinking about doing this and trying to dial it down to what exactly is the best number for them to use for their business?
So, we call them vanity numbers, but you really do need to take the vanity out of it because, for example, if I could get you 800 impact media, that's not bad, but you still need to provide context on what that number means. So when we look at the success stories, you think of 1-800-Flowers, 1-800-Contacts, 1-800-Dentist. Their number tells you the product or service they offer instantly. So those are by far the best numbers you can get your hands on. They're also the hardest to get and the most expensive. So we have ways of working around it. But the biggest piece of advice I can give is come up with a number that tells people what you do if you can. If you can't, the second best version is getting something that matches your name. And that's good too. I mean, look at what locally Sam Bernstein has done with 1-800-CALL-SAM, but he's had years and spent millions giving that number context. And you can do it. I mean, even more recently, the carpet guys, they've done a good job of doing it, but it takes dollars, and it takes, Hanson's did the same thing. You can make it mean something. It takes a little bit longer, but if you're in it for the long run and you want to build your brand, absolutely do that. But if you're a plumbing company and you have access to 1-800-Plumbing, it's a hard thing to pass up because that's going to be a home run for you when you advertise.
Well, I can tell you that what I enjoy about it is my ability as their ad rep to go back in and listen to calls that maybe the owner of the business didn't listen to, and be able to kind of pick it apart a little bit and say, hey, maybe if this could have done a little bit differently, it could have led to an appointment, or I guess it takes my consultative approach to the next level to be able to do those sorts of things. What are your thoughts on the importance of other people being able to listen in on the calls and analyze and help to handle those calls better in the future?
Well, absolutely. I mean, call recording is a big part of what we do in call tracking, because we've had situations where people have gotten a ton of calls, but then they drop the ball in terms of converting those people. Like the calls aren't being answered, um, you know, or they're not handling them properly. I think you and I actually had an experience where a lot of them were going to voicemail, or they didn't have the staff on hand to handle them, and that's a big problem for companies because this is the most important thing to take away. Calls convert 10 to 15 times more than web leads. So people will get confused, right? Because they'll think their internet strategy is just dominating because of the amount of leads they get. But then when they go through that and they comb through that pile, it takes them so much time and so many resources to find that one good lead. Your phone is there. If it's ringing, those are super valuable and they will convert much easier. You just need to handle them.
And we talk about the phone calls, and obviously that's still old school. Picking up a phone and calling still works, and it's still valuable. But you have some interesting things with text messaging that you've been talking about as another emerging thing that businesses should, another layer they should add to what they do. Can you talk a little bit more about the technology with texting and how it can help as well?
Absolutely. So I'm very excited about this because, business moves very fast today, faster than it probably ever has, and things change. We know that phone calls convert, but there was a side of it where people were saying, but we're doing a lot of stuff on the web. How can you help me there? And one of the biggest dangers we find with search is that, people won't put impactmedia.com, for example. They'll just type it into Google. And then Google shows them all the competitors and reviews and all those things. That's not a great value proposition for an advertiser if people are going there, spending money advertising, consumers are going online and finding, all these other distractions. So with the texting, what we've been able to do is we call it call initiated text messaging, or call the text for short. And we have the ability to instantly serve up a text message to a caller when they call a business for the first time. This is a one-time text message. We have the ability to disable it for people that call back again. But the point is this: you can serve people up a link that takes them directly to your digital assets, whether it's your website, a scheduling form, it can be a coupon. The text message could even be a two-way text message, meaning, thanks for reaching out to our company. What was the keyword you just saw in your ad? And, the people still stay on the line, so the call doesn't hang up, but they have the ability to track with that. They also have the ability to use that text message, like for out of home, for example. If you're doing a billboard campaign, someone calls, they get a text. It's almost like a bookmark for them where they can actually do something with the number, but they don't have to act at that moment in time because people aren't going to go to a website off of a billboard. It's just too hard to do and dangerous.
Are there any industries that you've seen that, whether it be the text messaging or the vanity numbers, that benefited from it maybe more than others? Or do you kind of look at this thing as really should be able to work for anybody?
Well, the companies that benefit the most are those that do business in the real world, right? If you're selling all of your goods and services online, I would say a vanity number is nice, but not necessary. Um, I could make the argument for it, but I'm not going to. Because the vanity number is just, it's about making it easy because it's another way of presenting yourself to consumers, right? If you see a company that has an easy to remember phone number, displayed prominently on their site, that's telling the consumer, one, we want you to call us if you need to. And two, we're making it easy because we care about you. The companies that bury their information, they don't really want you to reach out to them.
Right. Another question I get a lot of times too is people get confused. I give them some options of numbers to use that are more than the 7 digits. And they're like, well, that's not, they start doing the math. Well, that's not numbers, not going to work there because it's too long. Explain how you actually can go beyond the 7 digits and have one of these numbers.
Oh, that's a great question. So we call those 10 plus numbers. And the only thing I can tell you is look at the large brands out there, like Progressive Insurance, 1-800 Progressive, State Farm, 1-800 State Farm. There's all different types of companies. Royal Caribbean actually uses 1-800 Royal Caribbean, knowing that most people can get to Royal C, and then the spelling of Caribbean probably is going to be wrong. But the point is, on a cell phone, you press send. If you put all those digits in, it just dials it and cuts off the ones that it doesn't need. On a landline, it just starts ringing. So it's a non-issue. And for the people that are concerned with that, you have to know that our phone systems can handle it. And I tell people this all the time. I said, if you're worried about the length of the number or consumers' ability to dial the number, know that huge brands invest in these numbers, and that the lift you're going to see in terms of the increase in call volume will offset the 1% that can't or struggles with it. It's just that much better in terms of results.
And I know, like, when you give me options of numbers, a lot of times the 800 number's not available. So we have to go to an 833 or an 855 or something like that. It really probably doesn't make much difference, right? I mean, people are going to remember the back end of the number, but have you noticed really much difference between an 800 number or any of these others?
Sure. I mean, 800 is like .com, 888 and 800, I would say, are your closest to .com. And they do get the best results. Um, it's not all the same. 833 is a newer one, 844 is a newer one. And the reason why, and we will always put the best version of a phone number that we have available to you. We will not present a number, for example, an 855 plumbing, if I know that 800 plumbing's in use for that, because we don't want people to misdial and get a hold of another company. So when you deal business with us, we're always going to give you the best version of a number, and we're always going to get you the best version of the prefix. So we're not going to offer you 833 if we have 800.
Okay.
Because people know 800.
Right. And then there's actually some numbers that are not being used, but also not available too, right? Because there are companies out there that will just kind of like companies will buy URLs, but not actually use them, but reserve them. Kind of the same concept happens in this industry too, right?
Sure. So there's a lot of hoarders, and a lot of people in our industry, what they do is they want to get their hands on the best numbers possible, whether they spell something or they're one digit off of a well-known number, because they'll use that. They'll use that for leads. They'll sell that to companies that want to buy leads. So for example, if I was one number off of Royal Caribbean, for example, I would get a lot of misdials, and I would turn those misdials into cash by selling the leads to a travel company that wants to book cruises. So those people have locked up a lot of the numbers. And so what we do is we try to hold on to the best numbers for people to actually use them in their business. And we've been able to do that by regionalizing the numbers and making them affordable.
And from my experience working with you, you can get creative enough and come up with enough different versions of a number that we usually find something that works pretty well. But you and I could sit here and talk all day long about this process and how it works. And I think everybody's familiar. They've seen these call SAMs, they've seen these numbers. So this is not like a foreign concept, I think, to a lot of business owners that might be watching this. But really what they might be most interested in is specific success stories. So if you want to share maybe one or two that are really memorable to you, where you made a major difference with a business through one of these numbers.
My favorite one is a local Detroit one. So going back to which customers I have, this was the story. So 1-800-IDEAL-U is a customer of ours, Ideal U Health Centers. And they originally started off as Nutrimost. And this is going back about 5 years now. They had a number 844-322 thin. They advertised that regularly on radio. They had tried websites, short codes, and they came to us looking for a better option, and we got them 1-800-IDEAL-U. They saw their sales increase 8 times, and they liked it so much they actually changed their name from Nutrimost to Ideal U Health Centers.
Wow.
And they've been with it ever since. And if you're in Metro Detroit, you've heard them. You've heard them on Mojo. You've heard them on the Jello Show. I mean, they're all over, and that number is well known. And they love the numbers. So that's a great success story. And they've tried other things. And I think one of the things I want to highlight in that is they had a number 844-322 thin. And they said, well, we have a vanity number. I said, well, what is it? So that's not a vanity number. So that's one of the big things to take away from this conversation is premium vanity numbers are complete words or terms, and they make a big difference. And so that's probably one of the greatest local success stories I have that I can cite here, where they saw an 8 times increase in their sales.
That's just unbelievable to me. And do you think like you're able to figure out what is it exactly? What is it about that lead? Is it because people don't take the time to write a number down? So it's something, if it's something they can remember, your calls are going to increase. How in the heck does something make that big of a difference?
It's ease of memorability. That's all it is, because you got to remember, right? You're in advertising, and most people, they're not sitting there with phone in hand waiting to respond to your ad, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like only like 1 to 3% of people are ready to act when they hear that advertising message. So, once you factor out the people that it doesn't apply to, you're left with a small amount of people that may eventually act. When? We don't know. Giving them something they can remember that's direct. And that's the big thing. People will say, well, they can just go online. Of course they can. They can find all types of things. We're talking about something that connects the consumer with a business that is direct. There's no room for a competitor or someone else to reach into there. And it's direct with the best lead source. Those calls are going to convert more often. And one of the other studies we have was from our client. They were a vein practice in Pennsylvania, 23 locations. And they said, we want to see if they created a landing page, if our form does better than our 1-800-varicose phone number. And what they found out after their campaign was over, they did an A/B test, was that they got 14 times more patients from 1-800-varicose. And I thought this part was the most interesting. Those people converted, those people were 3 times less likely to cancel, and they came in 3 times sooner. So those calls not only are more likely to convert, but they have a sense of urgency. So they're going to do business sooner, and they're not going to back out. They're less likely to back out. So I thought that was a great study too, just to show, how
Yeah.
valuable calls can be
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, just all very interesting stuff. And just to kind of recap for especially the business owners out there that are listening to this, the sort of things that Bruno and I can help you out with are recognizable phone numbers. We can track the phone calls, listen to the phone calls. Sometimes maybe business owners never even know what happens when phone calls come into your business. We can actually give you the ability to go back and listen to those and get a better idea of what's going on the front lines. And those sort of things, I've seen it happen. Bruno's seen it happen. They do take your business to the next level. So, if you're interested in these services, certainly you can reach out to Impact Media Solutions, and I can kind of help get the process started. If you want to reach out to Bruno directly, Bruno, what would be the best way for people to find you?
Well, obviously, you can call 1-800-STRONG-SALES or our website, ignitiontollfree.com.
Fantastic. Well, it's always interesting to talk to you, Bruno. Great info. Appreciate you coming on with me.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.